Hello, neighbors, and welcome back to the absolute chaos that we call the Sussex Squad Chronicles. Because if you thought we had reached the peak of absurdity before, you need to grab your strongest cup of tea and sit down immediately. Because what I am about to tell you isn't just a car crash, it is a multi-vehicle pileup on the highway of Hollywood dreams. We need to be brutally, unflinchingly honest right now, because when your brand new, highly anticipated, budget-busting holiday special gets ranked below children's cartoons, the universe isn't just hinting at something, it is screaming in your face with a megaphone. And Meghan Markle, oh honey, she didn't just miss that sign. She tripped over it, slipped on her own manufactured storyline, and landed face first in a snowbank of pure, unadulterated embarrassment. Netflix didn't just sideline her projects. They handed her a cold, glittering slap of humiliation so icy it could freeze the royal corgi's mid-bark. Now, I know you guys are excited for more. But before we delve into further discussion, if you haven't subscribed, come on guys, what are you waiting for? Hit like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell ASAP. So now, imagine the scene, pouring your heart and soul, or at least what is left of it after selling most of it to the tabloids, into a Christmas special, dreaming of that magical, glowing comeback moment where the world finally sees you as the domestic goddess you claim to be, only for the algorithm to casually slide your masterpiece beneath animated penguins and a show about a talking potato. That is not just rejection, darling, that is annihilation with a candy cane bow on top. But the worst part, and this is where it gets truly juicy, wasn't even the ranking itself. Buried inside that frosty fiasco was a mistake so wild, so jaw-droppingly obvious, it cracked open the door to perhaps the biggest Meghan Markle expose of the year. So please, clutch your gingerbread cookies tight, because this holiday story doesn't sparkle. It shatters into a million jagged little pieces of truth. It all started the very moment Meghan's special aired, and the eagle-eyed viewers among us blinked, squinted, and leaned in closer to our screens, because we couldn't believe our eyes. There, wagging his tail, looking happy as ever, was Guy, Meghan's beloved beagle. Now, for those of you who don't keep a spreadsheet of the Sussex lies, let me remind you that this is the same dog she told the world had died. Yes, that Guy. Months before this special aired, Meghan posted a tear-streaked dramatic message about losing him. It was emotional, it was soaked in sorrow, it was the kind of post designed to flood her comments with crying emojis and virtual hugs from her cult-like following. According to her narrative, Guy had passed away in January, but then whispers started circulating that it actually happened way back in October. But suddenly, there he was on our screens, alive, breathing, and being filmed for a Christmas special that was supposedly shot recently. This is where the math simply does not math. If Guy truly passed away before the special aired, and if Meghan had just finished filming this year as she claimed, then how in the world did a dead dog walk right into the shot? That isn't a tiny continuity mix-up, like leaving a coffee cup in a scene of Game of Thrones. That is a scandal-sized crack in the reality she is trying to sell. It implies that either the filming timeline is a lie and this footage is ancient, sitting on a shelf because it wasn't good enough to release earlier, or the grief narrative was manipulated for public sympathy at a convenient time. Meghan, of course, did what she always does, which is smile, move on, and hope nobody noticed the zombie dog in the room. But oh, sweetheart, we noticed. We always notice. And that is when things went from messy to career-ending levels of drama, because it pulls the thread on the entire tapestry of lies she has woven since leaving the UK. For years now, Meghan has been trying to build this post-royal empire brick by brick, using Netflix as her shining castle on the hill. It was her big comeback, her golden Hollywood ticket, her stage to prove that she was the star and the royal family was just holding her back. Netflix gave her the deal, the money, the trust, and the chance to finally show the world she could deliver something of substance. But here is the truth that is being whispered through the terrified corridors of Hollywood agencies. Meghan hasn't stepped inside Netflix HQ for months. Not for meetings, not for updates, not even for a polite hello. Why? Because allegedly, Netflix didn't just pause the contract. They are letting it rot on the vine. This holiday special was reportedly her final shot, her last opportunity to show she could craft something real, compelling, and professional. And what did they get for their millions? They got a strange, meandering storyline, an impossible timeline with a resurrected dog, and Meghan sipping cider alone before the party even started. Netflix doesn't do pity, neighbors. Netflix does numbers, and Meghan's special gave them absolutely none. Executives were confused, the reviews were brutal, and viewers clicked out faster than a buffering ad. The rankings sank lower and lower until even the cartoons waddled past her in the charts. And just like that, Netflix didn't issue a statement. They didn't make a scene. They just closed the door quietly because in Hollywood, silence is the coldest, most permanent kind of goodbye. Now, let's step into the vibe of the special itself, because it was supposed to be her cinematic redemption moment. Instead of sparkle, it flickered like a broken ferret gasping for one last blink. The very first frame felt off. Meghan wasn't glowing with cozy Christmas warmth. She looked tense, sipping cider with that forced, manic grin you wear when you are trying to convince yourself you are having a good time at a party you hate. She was already drinking before a single guest showed up. Imagine turning on a holiday show and the host greets you halfway through her mug, implying she needs a stiff drink just to get through her own production. And the set? Oh dear, it looked like a tornado had danced through a department store makeup counter and taken a nap on her couch. It was messy. Her speech drifted, soft and slurred in parts, like she was floating between sentences without any traffic lights in her mind. It wasn't charming or relatable. It was painfully awkward. This was the project she hyped for months, the one meant to dazzle executives and silence the critics who say she has no talent. But it looked more like someone hit record while she was still rehearsing her emotions. And if you think that is bad, buckle up, because the guest list was a red flag all on its own. A holiday special should feel like family, laughter, teasing, old stories, and real chemistry. Think about when Catherine, our Princess of Wales, hosts an event. It is warm, it is dignified, and the people around her genuinely adore her. But Meghan's guests were mostly strangers, smiling that polite, red carpet-ready smile you give when you are contractually obligated to be somewhere. She didn't invite lifelong friends. She didn't invite the childhood buddies she mentions in interviews. The room buzzed with awkward energy, like a cocktail party where everyone is waiting for permission to leave. And let's address the elephant in the room, or rather, the missing prince. Even Prince Harry barely appeared. That silence spoke louder than any Christmas carol ever could. When your own husband, the man who gave up everything, his country, his family, his dignity, to follow you to Hollywood, skips your big project, it isn't a scheduling conflict. It is symbolism. Insiders whispered that Harry saw the chaos coming and didn't want to stand beside a sinking ship on camera. He is the spare, but even he knows when to spare himself the embarrassment. What Meghan tried to sell as togetherness ended up exposing her profound isolation. She doesn't have the close-knit circle she projects. She has contacts, acquaintances, and people who show up for optics, not intimacy. The laughter on screen didn't sparkle, it echoed. It was the kind of echo that bounces around a room too big for one person's ego. That loneliness bled into her next big mistake, which was the hypocrisy of the theme itself. You see, Meghan tried to sprinkle her special with British holiday nostalgia, her so-called favorite traditions. She smiled, spoke softly, and described carols and mince pies and quaint customs. But the details were wildly off, feeling less like real memories and more like a mashup of Pinterest captions and old tea commercials. And this is coming from the same woman who once called Britain cold, racist, and unwelcoming. She fled the country, trashed the culture, and insulted the people. But now, when she needs content, suddenly she is Little Miss Mary Britannia, praising the charm, the culture, and the coziness. It is like watching someone brag about their grandma's secret recipe while holding a frozen, store-bought pie with the price tag still on it. The disconnect was blinding, because Meghan doesn't just rewrite stories. She rewrites herself over and over again. But when you keep rewriting, you forget the earlier drafts. And that brings us to Kelly McKee, Meghan's so-called best friend featured in the show. Meghan paints their bond like it is soul-deep, but reality tells a different story. If Kelly was truly her ride or die, why wasn't she invited to the royal wedding? People invited their yoga instructors and baristas to that thing, yet Kelly didn't even make the waiting list. So what changed? Sources whisper it began after Kelly's heartbreaking tragedy, the loss of her son. Meghan reportedly reached out instantly. Suddenly, the friendship became very public, almost performative. Some say Meghan was being compassionate, but those of us who know her pattern see an opportunity to attach herself to a powerful emotional narrative. It wouldn't be the first time she used someone else's pain to make herself look like a savior. And the twist? They met through Trevor, Meghan's ex-husband, the man she erases from her story whenever convenient. It just shows that everyone in her life is a prop, utilized when needed and discarded when the scene is over. Ever since Meghan walked out of the palace gates, she has reinvented herself like clockwork. First, she was the brave truth-teller, then the podcast queen, then the Hollywood producer, the feminist speaker, the lifestyle guru, the documentary darling, and now the holiday storyteller. But every single reinvention fizzled out faster than the last. Spotify is gone. Netflix is silent. Brand deals are minimal. Public speeches are forgotten. Her big Hollywood glow-up has faded into background noise. This holiday special was supposed to be the final shining redemption, the one that proved the doubters wrong. Instead, it became her most public undoing, because reinvention is just an evasion when you are running from yourself. By the end, Meghan wasn't stepping into new roles. She was trying to escape the reality of her failures. This holiday special wasn't just another show. It was a mirror. Meghan couldn't control it. It reflected every contradiction, every performance, and every quiet truth she thought she had buried. There was the dog she mourned alive on film, the British culture she mocked, suddenly praised, the strangers she called friends sitting in seats meant for ghosts, the endless reinventions crumbling like cheap tinsel. For 5 years, Meghan has been running from the palace, running from criticism, and running from her own reflection. But this time, she ran out of script. Netflix is done. The audience has moved on. The ranking sits frozen below cartoons. And there she stands, alone in the glow of a single flickering bulb, realizing the story doesn't bend to her will anymore. Because when the cameras stop, when the reinventions fade, who is Meghan Markle without the narrative? This wasn't just the end of her Netflix era. It was the start of her reckoning. And if this chapter ends in humiliation, the next one will be explosive, because her story might be falling apart. But her addiction to drama is still premium content. Word around Hollywood is that Meghan didn't stick around for the wrap-up celebration. She reportedly left the set early, silent and tight-lipped, her team scrambling behind her. Some insiders said she was furious about how it all looked on playback, while others whispered she was heartbroken because deep down, she knew the magic she imagined just wasn't there. That night, when the crew shared behind-the-scenes photos, everyone smiled except Meghan. Her face looked frozen in that strange half-smile that screams, "I'm fine," when you are clearly not. The comments were brutal, with people saying she looked lost, lonely, almost robotic. Then came the ratings, and overnight, the analytics told the tale. The numbers plummeted. The special didn't even trend for a day. Not in the US, not in the UK, not anywhere. That is when people realized this wasn't just another flop. It was the final nail in the coffin of Meghan's Hollywood fairy tale. Behind closed doors, executives who once greeted her with champagne began declining meetings. Invitations vanished. Collaborators distanced themselves quietly. It wasn't anger. It was fatigue. The industry had grown tired of the Meghan Markle show. As the Christmas lights dimmed and the headlines faded, one image remained. Meghan standing under a glittering tree, cider glass trembling, smile wavering, trying desperately to hold together the version of herself the world no longer believed in. For the first time, she wasn't the heroine or the victim. She was just a woman watching her spotlight fade into the snow. Meanwhile, across the ocean, the real royals, Catherine and William, continue to serve with dignity, honesty, and grace, proving that true royalty doesn't need a Netflix deal to shine. So, neighbors, what do you think? Is this the end of the road for the Duchess of Netflix? And how on earth do you explain the resurrection of the Beagle? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, because the tea is hot, but the reception for Meghan is ice cold. Don't forget to like if you support the real working royals, subscribe so you never miss a beat of this unfolding drama, and I will see you in the next one. Ta-ta, and bye for now.